What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the 249 Miles of College Football podcast. I am Drew Nixon. Happy to have you along for the ride. If you haven't already, go subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast, the 249 Miles of College Football podcast. It is totally free. We come out with episodes every single week. I don't want you to miss a single episode moving forward. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of the college football season, so I don't want you to miss anything. Also, we got the Instagram live reactions every weekend right after the biggest game of the week for the locals. Last week it was South Carolina and Missouri. This week it's not the Missouri game. It is actually going to be the KU game against Cincinnati. We're going to recap that one as well as getting into some other things of what the games mean, what it mean. What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the 249. What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the 249 Miles of College Football podcast. I am Drew Nixon. Happy to have you along for the ride today. Before we get into anything, go subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. We got episodes every single week coming out. I don't want you to miss anything going forward. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of the college football season. Conference play is starting up. I want you to be able to listen to everything that we've got. And also, go check out the Instagram page for 96.5 The Fan. Every single weekend, we're going to be going live after some of the games, the local game of the week, and going through and recapping what we see from the weekend, what the games mean, what the results mean going forward, as well as just reacting to some other things around the world of college football. 15, 20 minutes on a Saturday at some point. So go check out the channel and the page. Normally, I'll let you know when we're going live, and it'll get a notification for you as well. Also, go check out the YouTube page for 96.5 The Fan. Full episode's going to start coming out for the podcast. So if you just like listening to me, fine. If you think, okay, I want to watch Drew, hello, everybody on YouTube. What's up? Thank you for joining. And yeah, go check out the channel there. You'll be able to catch the episodes, there as well. What we're going to get into today, the slate, we're going to react to the Missouri and KU games. Very impressive showings from both of them this week. K-State coming off the bye. What do they need to see this weekend what do you need to see to fully buy back into Kansas State? We're going to get into all three of those things, as well as the SEC came out with annual opponents. If you missed this, Missouri has 3 annual opponents that they're going to have over the next 4 seasons. Then things could potentially change after that. I think Missouri got a fair shake. I think it makes sense where Missouri's opponents land. Some other ones around the conference, I am a little bit skeptical of where we see the annual matchups. Some rivalries just aren't there in the annual opponent matchups for the SEC, but that is part of the deal. Also, the ACC is going in 9 games. The SEC is as well, so that means all Power 4 conferences will be at 9 games conference schedule. What does that mean going forward? As well as Mike Gundy was let go at Oklahoma State. What does it take for Kansas State to get in that same situation with Chris Klieman, as K-State is having the worst season they've had in some time? Where is that possible? What does it mean for K-State in terms of how these other schools are letting guys go? Is Chris Klieman on any sort of a hot seat? We'll talk about that, as well as our Saturday 6 picks, the 6 best games on the slate this week. I'm going to pick those and tell you who I think is going to win. So without further ado, let's get this thing going with the first half. Okay, so I want to really dive into, we'll talk about Missouri here in a moment, but Kansas, holy cow. The Kansas Jayhawks have been so impressive this year, and I know that they lost the game to Missouri, but one of the things that I said in recapping that game against the Missouri Tigers is if they scored 24 or more points, and the game was relatively close, which the game was tight all the way until the very end where it broke out, and the final score does not show how close of a game it actually was. That game really showcased to me against a really good Missouri defense, okay, this Kansas defense can cause people problems, and people need to be paying more attention to the Jayhawks. Do they bounce back with a good defensive showing? Not only did they do that, but they dominated West Virginia. I thought that West Virginia would cover. Silly me, because The spread, I think, was 13.5, I believe, when the game started. That's something, nothing light. A 31-point victory for the Kansas Jayhawks, 41-10. Incredibly dominant from the Kansas Jayhawks. Jalen Daniels was very good. He was efficient. He didn't have to do too much. He only had completed 12 passes, but running the football again, that was one of the things last week. Can KU run the ball again? Let's see them run well and bounce back from that game where they ran, I think, as a team for negative yards or 1 or 2 yards total against the Missouri Tigers. Yes, they did that. LaShawn Williams, 129 rushing yards on the day on 19 attempts. Jalen Daniels had 69 on 5 carries. You add in a couple other guys like Johnny Thompson Jr., Harry Stewart III. Daniel Hishaw only had 2 carries, but collectively, 6.6 yards a carry, 250 plus yards, a dominant day. Dominant for the Kansas Jayhawks. Also, Emmanuel Henderson is really stepping into that wide receiver run role, essentially. I know Cam Pickett had the great game at first, but Emmanuel Henderson has been that dude over the last couple of weeks. He had 6 receptions. Everybody else had 1. The other 6 combined had 1 to get to Jalen Daniels' 12, and then Cole Ballard's 1. Completion on the day. Defensively, they were assertive. They came out and punched West Virginia straight in the mouth, and I think as a result, you get this big dub. And now all of a sudden, you have people around the country, I think, who cover the Big 12 in particular, really not the nation because people don't pay enough attention to the Big 12, but people are asking now, legitimately, is Kansas a Big 12 title contender? And I said last week, I'm not going to take credit for it. I'm not going to act like I was, it doesn't matter. I said last week, based on the way that KU played against Missouri, you get right in the bye week, you come back and you bounce back. KU's a legit Big 12 contender because of the offense that I saw. Their offense is going to cause teams problems in the Big 12. And we're getting into this stretch now where for KU, this is the thing as well for Kansas. For K-State, they've got a bulk of their opponents are really still tough down the stretch, whether it be Utah, Texas Tech, now KU as well. Things are tough for Kansas State. On the spectrum for the Kansas Jayhawks, let me pull up their schedule for you. They've got Cincinnati this weekend at home. Then they've got UCF. Then they've got Texas Tech. That's the tough one. K-State, Oklahoma State, Arizona, who might be a little bit tougher than we thought, and then they end up with Iowa State and Utah. Like the end of the season is there, but Kansas could legitimately be 7-1, 8-1 through 9 games. And all of a sudden, those 2 games to end the year are basically playing games for the Big 12 title game. So to me, based on what I've seen from them offensively, we'll see if they can piggyback this good defensive performance with another good one against a solid quarterback in Brendan Sorsby in Cincinnati. But I'm very impressed with the Kansas Jayhawks to this point of the season and how they've looked. I still think that they're a legit Big 12 contender. And that might mean they go 9-3, and let's say they barely miss it. That doesn't mean that expectations change, but that doesn't mean that their season is really bad. That doesn't mean that they failed on the season. I said 8-4 was the prediction for me. I mean, if they went 9-3, 10-2, but they missed out on the Big 12 title game, I don't think it would matter because they get back to 9 wins. KU is back in relevance in the Big 12, and they're on the up. They're not projected to win the conference, had a little bit of an off season, and we'll see how they go. Kansas State's kind of in that boat right now, but the expectation was 7 or 8 wins. They get 9 or 10, and then you can just keep on building with a good recruiting class and the other things that Lance Leipold has done such a good job of. So very impressed with the Kansas Jayhawks. The Missouri Tigers on the flip side. I said last week, and the week before that, I think even. No, I said last week in the podcast, and I said it might change to the Alabama game. Lenore Sellers played, though, and he looked good in moments. I said if Missouri won that game, I think they're in the college football playoff. And I'm going to stick to my word, and I'm going to say that, yes, I'm going to back that up in a way, but I do think it comes more down to the Alabama game and the Vandy, like that little stretch for Missouri that's coming up here. They get UMass this week, which is a game that they're going to win, similar to the Louisiana game. They're going to handle business and everything like that. But the stretch after for the Missouri Tigers is the biggest stretch of the entire season, where after this UMass game, they have a bye week, and then they've got Bama, Auburn, Vandy, A&M. The Auburn game, Auburn's 3-1. I don't know if they should have fallen out of the top 25. They nearly beat Oklahoma. So, but it's that stretch where if they get through that stretch 2-2, they can make the playoff, I think, 100%, because they would be only 2 losses if they beat Oklahoma. And then I think if you're 10-2, the benchmark last year, the line, there was a hard line in the sand right down the middle. 10-3 or 9-3, and you were not in as an SEC program. Look at South Carolina and Ole Miss, who barely missed the playoff at 9-3. I believe Alabama might have been that as well. On the flip side of 10-2, if you're 10-2 and you're in the SEC, you're going to be in the college football playoffs. So that, I think, is the mark for Missouri. You don't need to go to the SEC title game. You don't need to be undefeated, but getting to 10-2 should get you into the college football playoff this season. I think that is still a legitimate thing. It would have been true last year. I think it could be true this year. They looked great against South Carolina. Bo Pribula continues to do his thing in terms of just really being efficient. I know he had the one turnover, but it feels like Bo Pribula, not that Drew Pine didn't, I don't think for sure, but Brady Cook didn't have the confidence. But I think that it's something different with Bo Pribula, where you combine the athleticism and the talent that he has combined with the buy-in from the team and the way that they look offensively. They're a group that can hang 30 points a game on you without a problem, can hang 35, at the drop of a hat. It doesn't matter who they're playing. Ahmad Hardy, once again, a stud on this past Saturday, had 138 yards. Jamal Roberts, that combination is lethal. 76 for him. Bo Pribula had 72 himself. It was very dominant. Only 4 guys had receptions, but they didn't need to have any of that because Mizzou came to play and were able to answer the call. It looked like a little bit early on, not that they were rattled, but South Carolina had gone up, and it's like, okay, let's see what happens here. They're up, I believe, 12-6. Lenora Sellers looks good. Let's see what Missouri can do, and they bounced back, hung in there. The defense bared down in the second half, and they were great. I think that this is it. This is all shades of a college football playoff team. This is what a college football playoff team looks like, and that's why I am bought more into. I think the Missouri Tigers can be, and I think really will be, because of this win and going forward. Like if they beat Alabama, I think for sure. Like I think we're in. We are in that mode, and I think the whole country will back up Missouri if they beat UMass and then they beat they beat Alabama after the bye week. I think the rest of the nation, and game day might be there for that Alabama game, by the way. The rest of the nation, I think, is going to be locked into the Missouri Tigers program if they beat Alabama and they are undefeated through 6 games. I know the schedule has played a relatively favorable role for the Missouri Tigers to this point, but hey, they don't make the schedule. It's just how it lined up. I mean, they do kind of make the schedule, but it lined up that way. That's how it goes. So they're just taking advantage of it. Ahmad Hardy is still, and I don't understand this, there is a top 10 in the Heisman. I think in the odds, too. He's 60-1. 60-1. 6-0. 60-1 Ahmad Hardy is to win the Heisman. Bo Pribula is 35-1. I get it, quarterback award. Ahmad Hardy should be better than 60-1. On3 gave their top 10 in the Heisman. Ahmad Hardy was not there. I'm relatively stunned that he's not getting more respect across the country, because they've played, you might look at the schedule. They played Louisiana. They played Central Arkansas. I mean, they played KU, who are very, very good and only have 1 loss on the season. They played South Carolina, who have the preseason maybe favorite to win the Heisman Trophy in Lenora Sellers. If you look at what Ahmad Hardy has done, he has 600 yards this season already. He's averaging 7 yards a carry. To give you a game log, Central Arkansas, the only reason he didn't have more in this game is because they blew him out, of course. He had 100 yards against Central Arkansas, 112 against KU, 250 against Louisiana, and then 138 against South Carolina. If he keeps this trajectory up, he's going to be at least a finalist. He'll be there. He will be in New York if he keeps this pace up. Now, again, that is the big question. I would expect him to get a hundo again this weekend against UMass. But if he keeps this pace up trajectory-wise against the opponents that he's playing, it's more impressive maybe than what Ashton Jeanty did, even though he did well against Oregon and Penn State in the playoff, of course. But doing it in the SEC is different than doing it in the Mountain West for sure. And Ahmad Hardy is just on fire right now. He's a beast, man. I don't know what other way to put it. He is a man amongst boys right now in the SEC. Shout out to Missouri for finding those Sun Belt backs. Did it with Nate Noel and Forgive me for forgetting the other player, the other running back who they brought in. I don't know why it's escaping me, but they brought in two guys from Georgia State and App State last year in the Sun Belt. Ahmad Hardy from UL Monroe. The Sun Belt might just be producing like Heisman caliber type of running backs. That's the way that things are going in the Sun Belt. So shout out to them. Missouri's taking advantage of it for sure. Real quick, I want to look at the SEC annual matchups as well as it relates to the Missouri Tigers. So earlier this week, the annual opponents got released. This is something the SEC is doing. I think the ACC might also be doing this as well. I can't remember fully if they are doing this yet or if it was just something that was talked about. But the annual opponents are out for the SEC. And the Missouri Tigers, will start with them, of course. Here are the three opponents. This is over the next 4 seasons. So, starting next year. So, through 2029, be 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, starting in 2030, it could be something different. Who knows what the way college football is going to look in 2030. The annual opponents for the Missouri Tigers, the next 4 seasons, these are teams that they will play every single year no matter what. Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. Now, for Missouri, I think this makes some sense because you look at the Arkansas rivalry, you look at Texas A&M, former Big 12, you look at Oklahoma, former Big 12, and also geographically, Oklahoma fits more than, I don't know, South Carolina. Not that they don't fit, but it fits Missouri a little bit more being there. Excuse me. This, I think, is also a fair shake, or maybe a nice shake, the way that things play out, because not that they're not good, but Arkansas has had some trouble over the last few years. A&M is getting back to being very good. Of course, they're inside the top 10. Oklahoma, they're inside of the top 15, top 10 area. Like Brent Venables is doing a very good job. So the opponents aren't easy, but I think in terms of the way that it shakes out with the criteria that they had, geography, excuse me, previous rivalries, whatever the case is, former Big 12 teams, I think it works out for the Missouri Tigers. In a very nice way, at least. Some other ones that didn't, look, not everything can be perfect, and I'm sure that things would change if it wasn't this. But I think that it is weird that LSU's opponents are Arkansas, Ole Miss, and A&M. They have a game that's called the first Saturday of November against Alabama. They don't play Alabama? They're not doing that rivalry game? The Florida Gators are a big rival for LSU. Florida and LSU aren't a permanent opponent. I would hope that they play more often than not, but excuse me. Really? Okay. One team that got really hosed, I think, out of this and is I feel bad for them. Arkansas. They have Missouri, Texas, and LSU. Really? That's tough. If you're an Arkansas fan, you're like, oh no, like please. Why? Auburn has Georgia, Alabama, and Vandy. It's not particularly great for them either. Yeah. I think Missouri got a fair shake out of it. The worst outlook is Arkansas, of course, going forward. But like again, that doesn't mean that Missouri is not going to play anybody difficult, because their future schedules also came out in terms of opponents, along with this being released. The opponents for Missouri, we'll take a look at next year's real briefly, and then maybe we can get into it a little bit later on after the football season's done, looking forward to more of the other stuff. But next year, Florida's schedule, or Missouri's schedule, excuse me, is not as easy as it has been the last couple of seasons. That's why this year is important that they take advantage of it. Next year, and we don't have the dates, of course, but they have 4 road games and 5 home games in the SEC. It's kind of nice for them. The home games are Florida, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M. Okay, already substantially tougher than this year. The road games are at Arkansas, at Georgia, at Mississippi State, and at Ole Miss. I mean, this we're going to know how good of a coach Elijah Drinkwitz is after next season. He's a really good coach right now. I think he's the top 25 coach in college football. But if they go 9-3 against the opponents that I just showed you, that I just told you, he might be a top 10 coach in the country. Dead serious. Dead serious. Florida, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, at Georgia, at Ole Miss. If they go 9-3 next year, Coach Drinkwitz might be top 10 in all of college football, and I don't know. It's going to be hard to argue. Hard to argue with the opponent schedule. Oh my gosh, that is tough. Anyways, neither here nor there. They get the annual opponents. By the way, of those annual opponents, Arkansas, they play on the road. Oklahoma and A&M, they play at home. I don't know if that, I don't know what that means in terms of how things shift the next year, just to give you the annual opponents. Arkansas, they would have at home. Oklahoma on the road, A&M on the road. I think it just, the way that it looks, it just goes back and forth. So they'll have two of those annual opponents at home next year, two on the road in 27, two at home in 2028, on the road in 29. So that just seems to be the way that it's going to rotate with the annual opponents for the Missouri Tigers. But look, I think this is cool. I think it really can draw out more rivalries and showcase things on a regular basis with the annual opponents. I do wish, though, that there some teams in the conference, I know that there's some rivalries that go away, but if you have a name, like LSU has Texas A&M, they played one game that went to 74-72, and it was 8 overtimes. That's never happening again because of the way the overtime rules work. I don't know if that's the infatuation with that. That's not a rivalry game. LSU should have Alabama or Florida on the schedule. It works out for them that they don't, though, I guess. I mean, A&M is still really good, but I would rather have a rivalry game. I think that's what college football is kind of built on, rivalries and pageantry and all these other things that make the sport what it is. I don't know. I don't know. The ACC is going to 9-game conference schedule, by the way, something now that the Big Ten has had, the SEC is going to have, and the Big 12 has had as well. So I think this is all really good. Everybody's going to be consistent. I do think the criteria of the SEC at least should match the criteria of the other conferences, where you should be required to play one Power 4 program outside of your conference once a year. Then all of a sudden, I think that gives you 10 games where it's either in conference or against a big Power 4 opponent. And then if you want to go play Southern Miss on the side, which Southern Miss are having actually a pretty good season this year with Charles Huff as the coach, and then to watch out in the coaching carousel anyways, or you want to play Tulane like Ole Miss has recently and Kansas State has recently, or whatever the case is, then you should be required to go and do that. And I think it enhances the schedule. Get rid of the FCS opponents. It's a waste of time. I understand it might help out the state school stuff, which I guess that is the case to really do it, where Alabama wants to play Alabama A&M. Okay, cool. You're raising funds. You're helping that program out a little bit. I understand why there would be some incentive to have that going in state-wise and trying to encourage the growth of programs within the state of Alabama or Georgia or wherever. So I get it. I get it. I think it makes sense. I think it's cool. Like if Mizzou wants to play SEMO and help them out, cool, great. I get the argument against it, though, because cupcakes, you don't want to have cupcakes on a schedule. It's a waste of time, but it also gives you some time to ramp up things a little bit before getting into conference play and all the things that would come with a 9-game schedule. So everybody will be consistent in the Power 4, which is nice to have in there as well. Okay, let's get to the second half of the podcast. So I want to look at the grass is not necessarily always greener on the other side. And what I'm talking about is sometimes it is player related, sometimes it is coach related. And there are things that when you move on from a coach, you look elsewhere and vice versa, or you just stay with who you have. Before we get to that particular point, Mike Gundy was let go. And this is a guy that's been, I think, 35 years total time at Oklahoma State. He's an alum. It's so much harder to bring in a coach that played at the university. I think it makes it so much more tough because it's a delicate situation. And if they're struggling, you don't want to just fire them quickly because they're an alum and they care about the school. But also, at the same time, it might just be time. And I think for Mike Gundy, I think it was kind of just time. I could see him going to coach somewhere else. Even if it's not a Power 4 job, I think there'd be interest for Power 4 schools to bring in a guy like Mike Gundy, who's had a dramatic amount of success while at Oklahoma State. I could also see him going and hanging out in the Sun Belt, pull a Butch Jones, and like Butch Jones is at Arkansas State right now. Coached at Tennessee for a little while, was really good. Ended his time there, took some time off, went to Arkansas State. I could see that happening for Mike Gundy. The man just loves football. And I think that is relevant in the way that he handled himself. Whether it's the I'm a man, I'm 40 rant, or anything else that he had talked about. I think he was an entertaining character that was fun for college football, and we need those coaches. I love Dabo and Coach Drinkwitz and Mike Gundy and Nick Saban when he would give some of his analogies. Like I think it's great. It provides character, honesty, within the realm of college football, and that's something that's different with the NFL. No offense to these coaches, but in college football, you don't hear the same answers all the time. You don't hear that. You don't hear the football speak or anything like that. Like they're on. Like there's going to be some of that. Like I'm not telling you the game plan, but being able to like sit up there and make a joke and actually have it be a thing that's a joke and it's fun and it's cool and it's quirky. That's college football, man, and I think it's really good. And I think Mike Gundy fit that. But the grass is not always greener for programs. Like I think even to the respect of Mike Gundy at times, like not for Oklahoma State in particular, but like with UCF. We'll see how it goes with Scott Frost. Nebraska didn't work out. The alum thing is a risky deal. Like, hey, you've got affiliation. Let's bring him in. UCLA is a dumpster fire of a program right now. They got to the point where they probably had to bring in an alum, but it didn't work out. Deshaun Foster, he just wasn't that great of a head coach. That doesn't mean he can't become one or he's not that great of a coordinator, but it didn't fit. Like he was at UCLA, but he was not the first option at UCLA. I can almost guarantee you that. They are in a flux with finances there, and Mick Cronin has called him out in college basketball for it. The NIL is not what you would think it is. Nico Iamaleava, they shelled out however much money for him. That's not working out. It's a complete disaster at that program. I don't know who would want to coach there. But bringing in alum is a risky deal. Oh, it sounds really great. Like it's really cool to bring in somebody, hey, who used to coach. Like, oh yeah, come back to campus. It's great. It's cool. It gets the fans going. But if it's not good, you get stuck in a little bit of a flux where it's like, well, we don't want to let him go because he's one of us. But then you need to let him go because it's time to go on. And I think that certain things like Scott Frost lasted longer than I think other coaches would have if they were struggling like Scott Frost was. Scott Frost lasted longer at Nebraska because he was an alum, I think. Now I think he's doing good things at UCF so far, but we'll see how it goes. The grass is not always greener for players. I mentioned Nico Iamaleava. That situation is sad, man. Joey Aguilar is going off. He's playing in big games. He's delivering against Georgia. He's playing in SEC. UCLA just lost recently to New Mexico. To New Mexico. Nico Iamaleava was not hurt. He did not play. He played the whole game. And they lost 34-10 to New Mexico. The grass is not always greener on the other side. You got to be careful as a player. I don't know if any players are listening to this or coaches. I don't know. But if you are, welcome to the program. Thank you for listening. The one thing that I would suggest, and I think a lot of people in college football, just in general, would suggest that you got to have, one, the right people around you, of course, helping make decisions, but I think you really got to. We see a lot of recruits verbally commit, and then they go and then they're wearing the gloves of another school, and they got a sleeve of another school, or they got hats that they're wearing from other schools that they're not committed to, and else. Don't commit. Don't commit. If I were me, I would not be committing to a school until the very end. I wouldn't commit to anybody. Until I knew this is where I'm going, I would not commit to anybody. Because I think it comes across as empty promises from you, even though you might not have that intention. And then what happens is these programs also give you the empty promises, and that's why so many kids enter the portal, I think, at times. They just want to land somebody. You got to look out for yourself just as much as Kirby Smart's looking out for Kirby Smart in Georgia. And that's not to say you can't get good coaching, and they're not a good coach. But the grass is not always greener when you just transfer over because, well, I'm not getting paid the same I want to. I want to get a raise, man. Like I'm going to go wherever I want to, and I'm good enough to make things happen. That's not necessarily true because coaching, it's just like the NFL. When you get drafted into a place, the quarterback might be great, but if the situation is sour, then the quarterback play is not going to be as good. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you that. It's just how it goes, man. UCLA, he went back home. Nico did. He's back in LA. He's back in Cali. He gets to go home. He gets to make a little bit more money. Coaching situation's not great. NIL situation's not great. Team situation, not as great. Your NFL potential, not as great. I mean, you could just go down the line of things that are not as good at UCLA. No offense to the program, but that's just the state of UCLA football. Really, the state of UCLA athletics compared to that of Tennessee. He left a situation that might be a dream for a quarterback in college football to try to get to the NFL. And instead, went somewhere where he could make a few more bucks, really was about the same, and it just totally bombed on him. The grass is not always greener on the other side. Sometimes it is, though. Sometimes it really works out, but you got to be careful. You got to be careful, especially now with NIL stuff. Like, is it worth getting paid that extra $500,000 when if you stay in a place, you could be better situated to go make yourself $30 million in the NFL? I don't know. I'm just saying. College basketball, I think it's a little bit different than the NFL, especially at the quarterback position. Especially at the quarterback position. Okay, final thing. We don't have time for overtime. We're going to jump to our Saturday 6 picks. The 6 best games in college football this weekend. Going to pick those games right now. So, Missouri, I'm not going to include that in the Saturday 6 picks. Missouri's going to win. I'm not including KU in the Saturday 6 picks or K-State either. We're going to pick those real quick before we get into the 6. So KU plays Cincinnati. I think that game is actually a little bit tighter than people think. The books right now have it at 4.5. I think Cincy could give KU some problems a little bit early on, just in terms of, not problems, but the game could be tight early on in the first quarter. Cincy can score some points. But KU pulls away eventually. That game's on TNT, by the way, at 11 a.m. I think KU wins the game. K-State, this one's interesting. So UCF mentioned Scott Frost. They're 3-0 right now. The game's on FS1. K-State is favored by 6.5 still. I'm weary about this pick, but I think that coming off of a bye week, K-State is going to show us something. And if they don't show us anything after the bye week, that's a serious problem. And I think they really are going to be in the tank for the season. And it's a big issue. If they don't look better, more like the team that we thought they would be this season, after a bye week on Saturday. I think they beat UCF. I think they can turn the season around. I don't know if I'm optimistic in that or too optimistic, but I really think K-State can find a way to come back in this season and make something of it. Not go to the Big 12 title game, but they can go 7-5, 8-4, and fit into that 7-9 win-ish range that K-State tend to fall into. I think 7-5 or 8-4 would be a good season given how things have started. But I would expect an identity shift in this game. This is what the K-State team that we should have been seeing. I think we're going to see that on Saturday. And if we don't, then there's some serious problems going on in Manhattan. I think K-State gets the win there. Real quick before we get into the picks. After these 2 games on Saturday, so probably around 2:30-ish or so, we'll be going live on Instagram on 96.5 The Fans Instagram page, recapping these 2 games, previewing a little bit of the Missouri game, but more recapping the 2 Big 12 games, what it means for the conference standings, as well as K-State and KU going forward. So stay tuned on the IG page for that, as well as maybe another video before the game start. It was a funny moment, but before just giving a little preview video, I might have something up my sleeve for y'all on the Instagram page for 96.5 The Fan. So stay tuned for that. Okay, let's get to the Saturday 6 picks, the 6 best games in the slate for the weekend. There's a lot of really good games, a lot of really good ones. The first one I'll start off with is USC and Illinois. Illinois got throttled by IU this past weekend. We were wrong on that one, unfortunately. USC looks really good this year. Jordan Mailata at quarterback has been very good for Lincoln Riley. The Trojans at 21, the Illinois Fighting Illini at 23 in the country. USC is favored. The game is in Champaign. I do think Illinois will bounce back. I think the game is going to be really good. But I just think that, man, this is tough. Because I think the way that they looked against IU, I don't think that's the Illinois team. But I also think USC can really score a lot of points on them. So I think USC wins. I don't know if they cover the 6.5, but I think USC wins the game over the Illinois Fighting Illini. I think it's a really good one, though, in Champaign. This is maybe the most underrated game of the slate of the weekend. Number 1, Ohio State at Washington. Washington have the second best scoring offense in all of college football. They are very, very good. Their quarterback is a true sophomore, Damon Williams Jr. He's legit. Not any interceptions this season. And I'm not saying that Julian Sayin is not that great of a player. Julian Saints had a really good start to the season. But I wonder if now that you're playing good opponents, how does that change a little bit? Like, I know they played Texas, and he played okay against Texas, and they ended up winning the game. But you're on the road in a crazy environment, the first true road game of the season. How does that look? I think Washington could really stun a lot of people. It opened at 13.5. It's at 7.5 now. I don't think Washington wins the game, but I think this game is really tight and it goes down to the wire. Give me Ohio State in this matchup. LSU at Ole Miss. This might be the game of the weekend. Number 4 LSU, number 13 Ole Miss. The game is in Oxford. That is on ABC at 2:30. Ole Miss is a favorite by 1.5 points. Trinidad Chambliss is going to get the start. Austin Simmons is going to be out again, or at least he'll be available, but Trinidad Chambliss has played good enough that Lane Kiffin's like, yep, I'm going to stick with him. LSU is loaded from a roster standpoint. Ole Miss had a great portal. We know how good of a coach Lane Kiffin is. I think this is going to come down to coaching. In the end, it's going to be Brian Kelly versus Lane Kiffin more than it is even the players against each other. I think I'm going to give the edge to Ole Miss because it's in Oxford. But also, I want to pick LSU in this game because I think LSU is so loaded on talent. I think LSU wins. I think this game will go down to the wire as well. It's going to be tight. It's going to be close. It's going to be fun. Everything that we expect out of the matchup, we're going to get it. LSU wins a close one over the Ole Miss Rebels on Saturday. This one, actually, I think is the game of the week. Never mind. I'm sorry. I forgot about this. It's the whiteout game in Happy Valley. Oregon at Penn State. Mo Bamba is going to be cranked to start that game. It'll be awesome. The best environment maybe in all of college football is a whiteout game at Penn State. Penn State 3.5-point favorites. The Nittany Lions taking on the Oregon Ducks. This is going to sound so crazy. Penn State, as great as they are on both sides of the ball, I think Oregon is going to give them all they can handle in this game. I think Oregon is going to cause them some issues for that Penn State defense. They're going to be on top of things and ready to go. But I don't think Dante Moore, and he's looked really good to start the season. He hadn't faced a defense like Penn State yet. He hadn't faced an environment like Happy Valley yet. And I think Penn State get this win. It's another close one. It's another thriller. But Penn State win this one, I believe, in a tight one over the Oregon Ducks. And I don't think Dante Moore necessarily plays bad. But he hasn't played in an environment like Happy Valley. He hasn't played a defense like Penn State this year. He's been very good to start the season, and Oregon, of course, is very prolific. But Happy Valley, Penn State, night game, whiteout crowd, different animal. Different animal. So we've gone through 4 games. We got 2 more left to go on the slate of games. I guess this is almost a SEC Big Ten type of hype train here for the Saturday 6 picks, but Auburn and Texas A&M. A&M is 9th in the country. They're coming off of a string of good wins to really begin their season. Auburn, of course, the tough loss against Oklahoma. I think A&M win this game, and I think Marcel Reed is going to continue to showcase that he is as legit of a quarterback as anybody in the country. That defense is a problem. That environment is going to be ruckus and crazy for Jackson Arnold. I think Auburn hangs tight, but Auburn's schedule is really, really difficult, and A&M get the better of them in this one. Give me the Aggies to win. Final game of the slate to predict. Alabama, Georgia. Number 17, Bama. Number 5, Georgia. The game is between the hedges in Athens. Georgia is very, very good. They've looked great. Gunnar Stockton has really impressed me, I think, over the course of this season. He's been better than I thought he would be, just in terms of being able to make plays when it matters most and all those other things. Alabama, I think, is out for some blood in this one, though. And I with the way that they played against Wisconsin, the way that they bounced back from that Florida State game, I think Alabama is really going to give Georgia some issues. And all the people who are talking about Alabama, well, people want Kalen DeBoer gone and all this other stuff. If they beat Georgia, all that talk is going to go away very quickly. Very, very, very quickly. Very quickly. Alabama are in a very difficult stretch here. An extremely difficult stretch. They got Georgia, then Vandy, then Mizzou, then Tennessee, then South Carolina, then LSU, then Oklahoma. You could argue Alabama needs this game. Needs it against Georgia to try to continue some of that momentum before jumping into that gauntlet, the rest of the gauntlet that it is, the remainder of the schedule. All that being said, I think Georgia wins the game. Zachariah Branch is a stud. Transfer from USC. He was great there. He's great at Georgia. Effectively on defense, they've been elite. I think they're going to cause Ty Simpson some problems. I like Ty Simpson a lot, but I think in the end, Georgia's too much. Georgia wins the game. I think it's as a theme. I picked one road game, I believe, for the entire Saturday six picks. Georgia hosting, Penn State hosting, Ole Miss hosting, but I think LSU beats them. A&M hosting. They win the game. Illinois, I picked USC to win that game on the road, and Ohio State was a road team as well. So a little bit even, Steven, but a ridiculously good slate. You don't want to miss any of the games this weekend. It'll be a fantastic Saturday. I love college football so much, and this is one of the weekends why. So many good games, rivalries, big-time slates. We love it all across the board. All three locals are playing. Why not love it? Why not love it? It's college football, baby. College football, baby. There's nothing like it. That's going to do it for the podcast today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you haven't already, go subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss a single full episode if you want to watch me. Going to have clips as well coming out that you can catch. In addition to some of the interviews that we'll be doing them on Zoom like we have previously. The interviews will be up on the YouTube page as well. If you just like to listen to podcasts, go check out the podcast page on the Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe there so you don't miss a single episode going forward. We'll catch you next week for another episode of the 249 Miles of College Football podcast. Till then, peace.